Today I'm going to be teaching you about one-point linear perspective. It's called one-point linear perspective because all of the corner points of the objects recede to one vanishing point. So the first thing we need to do when drawing our boxes in one-point perspective is to establish our horizon line and our vanishing point to which all of our lines will recede. So
The square that you're going to be working in is a little over 5 inches square. So when you go to measure to establish your horizon line, I want you to measure down from the top of your square 2.5 inches. You'll measure first on the right side and then on the left side, and then connect these two points with a horizontal line. This will establish your horizon line. So next I'm going to measure halfway in on my horizon line, which would be 2.5 inches into the center, and mark it for my vanishing point.
now that I have established my horizon line and vanishing point, I need to draw 3 squares, one that is bisected by my horizon line, one that is above my horizon line, and one that is below my horizon line. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the one that's on my horizon line. I'm going to keep my square an inch just to make an easy measurement. So I go ahead and I make a mark at 0, a mark at 1. Then, to make sure that I have half of it above, half of it below, I put my half-inch mark right on the horizon line. So at 0, again, I make a mark. At 1, I make a mark. And I set this again here. So at 0, I make a mark. At 1, I make a mark. Again, you're seeing my half-inch mark on the horizon line. And now I can go ahead and connect my lines. One way to make sure that your lines are perfectly parallel to each other, line up the edge of your ruler with the outside edge of the square of our workspace. So I have my first square drawn there, and actually my lines are just slightly off. So I'm going to go ahead and move those in so I have a nice inch mark square. And you will want to draw pretty light as we are doing this practice because there are lots of times that we are going to be erasing. I'm going to be drawing a little bit darker though so that you can see my lines. Okay, so I have my first square drawn. Now I need to create my 1-inch square that's above this point. So I go ahead and I start with a 1-inch line, line up my ruler with the side of my square here so I can make sure that it's nice and perpendicular. Measure another inch. I measure another inch. And I didn't quite make this line long enough, so I'm just going to extend that. So I have another inch square, and now I need one below. So again, I set my ruler so I have a nice horizontal line that's parallel to my horizon line. I measure down an inch from each end of that horizontal line. Then I line up my ruler with the side there, and I draw a line to connect. And I finish off the edges of my square. square. So now I have my 3 squares that are to the left of my vanishing point. One is sitting right in the middle of the horizon line. So the next step that I need to do is I need to add my orthogonal lines or my lines of convergence. So what I want you to do right now is I want you to draw a dot on the top right corner of your square, the bottom right corner of your top square, and on the bottom left corner of your top square. On your middle square, I want you to put a dot on the top right corner and the top or bottom left, bottom right corner. And then for our bottom square, we're going to put a dot on our top left, top right, and bottom right. What these dots signify is that we can draw lines of convergence from them to the vanishing point. One way to double check which corners we can use this technique with is by seeing if we can draw a line of convergence or a diagonal line back to our vanishing point without drawing through our original square. So let's go ahead and start with this top right corner. If we look and we line up that right corner with our vanishing point, we can draw a nice straight diagonal line connecting them. Did we run into our original square? No, so it's okay. We can add that line of convergence. So we move to our bottom corner. I draw my line of convergence. I look. Did I run into my original square? No, so that's okay. I can keep that line. So for my next square, or my next corner of my square, I line it up with my vanishing point. I add my line. Did I run into my original square? No. Now if I go to this corner and I line it up with the vanishing point, if I were to add this point, I would be drawing through my original square. So I can't add a line of convergence because that's part of the cube or the box that is going to be hidden by our front panel here that we're seeing for the square. So we don't add our line of convergence to this corner. So now we go to our middle one. We can do our corner check again. So I usually start with the top corner and I look for my top right corner. Can I draw a diagonal line to my vanishing point without running in my square? Yes. So then I move down to my bottom right corner. Can I draw a line diagonal here to my vanishing point without running in my square? Yes. So I go ahead and add it. Now I check my other 2 corners. Now I line this up with my bottom left corner. Can I draw a line there without running into my square? No. What about this top one? So I line it up with my vanishing point. Can I draw a diagonal line here without running through my original square? No. So I don't add lines of convergence to those 2 points. Now I move on to my bottom square. So looking at this top left corner, lining it up with my vanishing point, I notice that I won't run into my square, so I go ahead and add it. I do a corner check here on my top right corner. I see that I won't run into my square, so I go ahead and add it. I move down to this bottom right corner, and I can see that I can add it without running through my square. I do a corner check here on this bottom left corner. If I were to add my line of convergence, I would run through my original square, so I don't want to add it. Okay, so now I have my line of convergence for each of my boxes. To show the back edge of the box, we need to add some parallel lines. So the first thing I do is I line up my ruler here with the top of my square of my art space that I'm working in, and I need to add a vertical line that is parallel to the right side of my top box. So I'm just going to slide this over a little bit, and I'm going to go ahead and add a vertical line connecting those 2 lines of convergence. Then I move down to the 2 lines of convergence on either side of my horizon line, and I want to connect those with a vertical line. Then for my bottom box, I want to connect my bottom 2 lines of convergence. So if you look, we now have a line that is parallel to our original right side of each of our boxes. Okay, so now the next thing we need to do is add a line that is parallel to the bottom edge of each of our or top edge of our boxes. So we're trying to add in one more side of our boxes. So what I'm going to do again, line up my ruler with this outside edge of my square to make sure it's nice and parallel. I move it down to the point of intersection between my vertical line that I just added and my convergence line. At that point, I want to add my horizontal line. So I'm connecting my bottom right corner convergence line to my bottom left corner convergence line with a horizontal line. Now, because this box is sitting on our horizon line, we don't have to add anything to this for our horizontal parallel lines. So I'm going to go ahead and move down to this bottom box. Well, since it's below our horizon line, we're not going to see the bottom of the box, we're going to see the top of the box. So I want to go ahead and line up my ruler with the top horizontal line of my box. And I'm going to go ahead and slide my ruler up, keeping it aligned with the side of my square so it's nice and parallel. I'm going to go ahead and add in my horizontal line that is parallel to the top line of my cube. So now I have my boxes created. It's time for me to go ahead and erase the lines that I no longer need. So this here is the front of my box. This is the right side of my box. And this is the bottom side of my box because it's floating above my horizon line. So because of that, I no longer need these lines of convergence that are outside of my box. So I'm going to go ahead and take my eraser and erase any lines that are outside those parallel lines that I just added. Now I'm going to look at my middle box. This middle box is sitting on my horizon line. So this is the front of my box here, so I shouldn't be able to see my horizon line. So I'm going to go ahead and erase that part that's showing through the front of my box. Now this would be the side of my box. Okay, again, I shouldn't be able to see my horizon line on the inside of my box. Now I'm noticing my parallel line was a little bit too long, so I'm going to go ahead and erase that little bit that went too far. I'm going to go ahead and retrace that line that I just erased a little bit of. So I want to leave my horizon line outside of that middle box, but I do want to erase my lines of convergence. I no longer need those. For my bottom box, again, here's the front of my box, the right side of my box, and the top of my box. I no longer need these lines of convergence. So I'm going to go ahead and take and erase each of these lines of convergence.